Hey, it's Ethan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the eTrailer 24 by 60 inch Hitch Cargo Carrier, how it fits on our 2021 Chrysler Pacifica. Obviously with the Pacifica you have a decent amount of storage here in the trunk, but maybe you're going on a long road trip and you need something that's going to allow you to get a little bit more storage in the back, or maybe you're transporting some items that might be a little bit taller or just messy that you want to leave outside your vehicle. This cargo carrier is a great way to do that, so let's check out how it works. This is a very versatile Hitch Cargo Carrier. It also tilts and it has the ability to fold up and store closer to your vehicle, which I'll show you in just a second. But I will just be focusing on how the carrier fits with a specific vehicle. So if you want specifics or measurements that I might not give you in this video, feel free to check out the full review or the product page here at etrailer.com. The carrier is made of steel with a black powder coat finish, so it's going to be durable and it's going to hold up to weather, rust, and corrosion better than some untreated or aluminum carriers might. Well, you can see that there is this mesh floor at what the carrier is actually made of, so you can store pretty much any size items you want while still having the ability for them, if they're wet or muddy or snowy or sandy, for that to just fall through. And if it does end up getting the carrier a little bit dirty, you can just hose it off and it'll be fine. You can see that these rails go all the way around, so you can strap down to the top rails here or the side rails wherever you need to make your gear fit. Compared to some of the, also comparing that to some of the aluminum carriers that we've tested, these sides are going to be sturdy, and some of the aluminum ones, they're a little bit thinner and we don't necessarily trust those, but with this one I would trust those entirely. One thing you can likely notice is that it does stick out quite a bit away from the vehicle. Part of that is because there is that rise in the shank, and it also has to be long enough to have the ability for it to tilt and fold. It does tilt down like I mentioned, but for the sake of the Pacifica it already sits really low, so it doesn't even come up quite to my knees, so I wouldn't imagine that tilting it is going to help us a ton in this situation. But I will show you how far we're actually going to be adding on to the back of our vehicle. So from the bumper to the furthest point back, it's going to be about 39.5 inches, so that definitely does stick out quite a ways. As far as ground clearance goes, there is a little bit of a rise. It's probably going to change once you start adding your gear into it. For now, it sits about 10.5 inches, but as you can see, if I step into it, it's definitely going to move down quite a bit. One of the benefits of the carrier sticking out as far as it does is that we're going to have a much higher breakover point for opening up our hatch. Basically, that just means when you're storing up your items, you want to stack them tall. You don't want to make contact with your hatch and still be able to open it with those items stored up. The point where it's going to break over, I measured, and it's going to be around 24 inches or 2 feet before it actually makes contact with your items. Comparing that to some of the other carriers we've tested, that's going to be about 10 more inches of usable space for your carrier. Also, we do recommend, if you start piling things up, definitely get some straps to keep them down, keep them secure. You can pick those up here at eTrailer. We also have nets or baskets, or bags rather, if you want to protect your gear a little bit better. And one thing to consider is that when you start stacking up your gear, what you're going to cover on the back of your car. For the case of the Pacifica, the license plate is obviously in the middle and your backup camera is right above it. So if you start stacking your gear up high in the middle, that will potentially be covered up. And we'll take a closer look at what it's going to cover on the back of our vehicle once we fold it up. If you want to tilt the carrier away, which I mentioned we're not going to do for the Pacifica, you will have to remove both of these pins. If we want to fold it up, we'll just have to remove this bottom one. So I'll start by doing that, just taking the clip out, removing the pin, and it is a little bit heavy, so you will need to get back behind it, fold it up, and then I can replace the pin as well as the clip. We'll just have to line this hole up down here at the bottom. Probably gonna have to wiggle it back and forth just a little bit to get it through. Then I can replace the clip, and now we can take a look at what that's gonna cover. So now straight on, you can see that there are gonna be some windows to see your license plate, but your backup camera is pretty much directly in the middle, and that's gonna be very obstructed. It's gonna be pretty tough to see through. You might be able to see through some of this mesh, but you're definitely gonna know it's back there. It doesn't come quite enough high to cover up our taillights. In the event that it does, there is an optional light kit that you can pick up, and it's not going to come anywhere near our rear window. The carrier uses a 2-inch shank that fits into our 2-inch receiver tube. It's held in place by a hand threadable anti-rattle bolt with a nut on the other side, as well as a clip As you can see, there is also a collar that is adjustable. So if you do want to use this with different cars, with different receivers, maybe you have a couple of family vehicles, you could switch that around to accommodate those different cars as well. When we're down here, we usually like to check the exhaust and see if maybe any of the heat coming out of that could damage our items. For the sake of the eTrailer cargo carrier, I think it sits far enough away, even when it's folded down, that your carrier or that your gear inside the carrier isn't going to be subject to that damage, especially because the exhaust points down. But it's something we like to consider and be mindful of. Overall, if you're looking for a way to get more storage out of your vehicle and you want the versatility of it being able to tilt when you're using it or fold up when you want to store it, the eTrailer 24 by 60 inch Hitch Cargo Carrier is definitely a really solid option. I will say though that it is bulky and it is heavy, so if you're looking for a place to store this when not in use, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult. So if you're looking for a Hitch Cargo Carrier that you want to be able to just pop out, pop in, and store a little bit easier, maybe you're just making shorter trips, you can check out something by Flint Hill Goods. They have a lot of aluminum options from different sizes. Going to be more lightweight, easier to store when you're not using them. But again, if you want something rugged that you're going to keep on here pretty often and you want that versatility, the eTrailer 24 by 60 inch Hitch Cargo Carrier is definitely a really solid choice. Again, this was just a look at how it fits on our 2021 Chrysler Pacifica.